Credit cards are amazing things.
Oh, they are fun.
Hold on, how many you got?
11, and I am proud to say I only have 11.
Okay, I want you to know something. She culled her wallet. She had a wallet just for credit cards. Just for credit cards. And how many did you have?
30-something. Oh. But I didn't use them all, so I went ahead and got rid of some.
Somebody has an issue.
I do not have an issue. I have a fun life.
I have issues.
Yes, you do.
I am cheap.
And controlling.
Okay.
But you're growing out of that.
That's a little harsh.
You're growing out of that.
Yeah, but you got to invest, and you use credit cards for the right reasons. It's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing.
Well, Tim says there's good debt.
There's good debt, and there's bad debt. Now, let me tell you something about good debt. Good debt is when you're buying something that's going to actually grow in value. So we're not talking about traveling around the world with your credit card. We're not talking about going to every restaurant you can visit.
An item.
Yeah, that's called personal consumption. That's usually a bad kind of debt. But buying things that go up in value, like your home. How many people borrowed money to buy their first homes? Almost everybody has done that.
Yeah.
And is that a bad kind of debt? I think most people would say, no, I'm glad I bought my home.
Tim, and I agree with you. I would love to see some of my family members buy a home. But when you're like in Toronto or you're in LA, nobody can get a home. Nobody's got $1 million just to get an apartment.
Well, and there's the challenge of finding that first down payment to allow you to buy, but you're going to borrow the rest if you're able to buy a home. Right. And that's a good kind of debt because the interest rates are low and you're buying an asset that's growing in value. Right. When the interest rates are high and you're buying something that's going to disappear because you've eaten it or you've traveled or whatever, that's a bad kind of debt. That's personal consumption. That's the kind of debt you want to get rid of as fast as you can.
Okay, but let's talk about credit cards for a minute here, right? I mean, because you're not going to throw a house on a credit card. So
unless you live in Saskatchewan, maybe. But I should say
or Kentucky, because my daughter's down there looking at houses, thinking that's what it costs for a house in Kentucky.
Oh, I know.
Buy 5, you know, like I mean, it's pretty cool. But seriously, people have all these cards. Some have more than others. Some of us have 2. Some of us have 30.
And by the way, let me say something about that. Every time you apply for a credit card, it actually affects your credit rating. I don't know if you know that. They assume that when you apply for a credit card, they assume that you're desperate for credit. So the fewer credit cards you have, the better. You might want a bigger limit on those credit cards, but you want to have fewer cards. Anyway.
Oh, that's a good thing. Okay, now I got all these credit cards, and I'm using them freely. Okay. What's good and bad debt in a credit card? Because like, maybe I should buy flowers, and it's a good thing for my marriage, but it's a bad thing for my finances.
That's right. Well, you're right. There's some things you need to do. You need to buy those flowers from time to time, but you want to make sure if you can deduct the interest cost on your debt, which is always a plus, and that's not the case with most kinds of debt.
What do you mean deduct the interest cost?
On your tax return, if you're paying interest costs on your credit cards or other kinds of debt, you might be able to deduct the interest on your tax return against your income. Now, that's not the case for most people. In the U.S., you can deduct a little bit. And in Canada, generally, you can't deduct any unless you're borrowing money or using the credit card for business purposes or for a rental property or something. If you're using it for an income-producing purpose, that's always a good thing. And so you want to borrow money for income-producing purposes when the interest rates are low, and when you're when you're using something or buying something that's growing in value. That's all. That's good debt. Bad debt is when it's for personal consumption and the interest rates are high and you can't deduct the interest. That's bad debt.
There's people watching and they're just mad about the fact we're talking about money. Get out of my face. I don't want to hear about credit cards and all that stuff, right? And so Tim, give them just a little snapshot about how bad it is to go overdrawn on your credit card so that you're always paying just that little bit.
The people I know, they consider living within their means is that they can do the minimum payment on every credit card that they have.
I mean, the objective here is, set your limit on your credit card so it's not too high. Call the credit card companies, if you're good at paying off your credit cards, they'll hike up your credit limit. You call them up, you say, look, I don't want that higher limit. Keep my limit at $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever you can manage, all right, making the assumption that you're probably going to hit that limit at some point in time. You want to keep the limit reasonable and keep the number of credit cards down as well. There are ways of controlling the amount of spending that you do on your credit card as well. So you want to force yourself to think twice. If you're an impulsive buyer, which is never a good thing, you want to be able to control your credit card use. And I have one gentleman I know, it worked really well for him. He put his credit card in a glass of water, stuck it in the freezer, and then when he wanted to use it, he had to think twice. He had to thaw it out before he actually used it. Not a bad idea, actually.
I am not freezing my credit card. Like, that is not happening.
30 glasses in the freezer.
I used to have
side by
30.
side. There they go, side by side.
I only have 11, and especially now that you said that actually looks bad on my credit, I'm glad I'm down to 11.
And you don't want, if you've got 11 cards and you've got some department store cards, those kind of cards have the highest rates of any kind of card, right? If you stick with the major credit cards like a Visa or a MasterCard, you're going to get typically a lower rate of interest if you're careful about what kind of card you get. So make sure you keep the interest rates down.
So would it be good to get rid of all those department store cards and put them over onto the bank cards?
Not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. It depends what kind of a limit you can get on your larger card. But again, you don't want to apply for too many cards because the process of applying for them is hurt your credit rating. But you want to get rid of some of those cards, consolidate them, in other words, into a credit card that's got a lower rate of interest on it.
Right.
Most of these credit cards have rates like 19%. The department store cards are usually 24 to 30%.
Right.
So, you know, if you can get a credit card with a 9% interest rate, or even better, a home equity line of credit, which is even better way to borrow money.
Is that through the bank?
Yes.
Okay.
You go to the bank, and it's like a checking account that is basically a line of credit. You can write checks on it, but the interest rates on those kinds of lines of credit are often down around 6, 7, 8%, even better.
Okay, I need to interrupt you guys because I know there's a lot of you out there who have credit card horror stories. Now, whether it's your fault or the fault of the credit card company, go to our website and tell us all about it and how, especially how it affected your relationship. You can also go to our website and find the 5 quickest ways to get out of debt. Stay with us. There's a whole lot more about money.